For weeks, Caitlin Clark was repeatedly targeted on the court while the WNBA stayed silent. Fans were outraged. Analysts tiptoed around the issue. Then the silence shattered, not from the WNBA, but from the NBA's biggest stars. These weren't polite shout-outs or press team quotes. This was raw, unapologetic voice. Steph Curry, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and others weren't just praising her game. They were defending her against what they saw happen live. Steph, in particular, had reached a breaking point. He witnessed the hits, heard the silence, and when he finally spoke, his message reverberated across the basketball world. When a superstar like Curry publicly rejects Caitlin being treated like a punching bag, everybody listens, and he was far from alone. At least half a dozen NBA All-Stars went on record saying, Caitlin Clark isn't a flash in the pan. She's an elite-level player being unfairly targeted, and it's unacceptable. So what did they actually say? These are the unfiltered, word-for-word reactions from some of the NBA's most influential players. And a few of their comments just might surprise you. When NBA players show love, it usually stays within their own ranks. So when Pascal Siakam, the All-Star champion and one of the smoothest two-way players in the league, was asked about Caitlin Clark, most people expected a generic compliment. Maybe something safe, surface level. But Pascal didn't play it safe. The context: he was being asked about which player gets the most love. And out of nowhere and unexpectedly, he brought up Caitlin Clark, not just in passing, not as a polite nod, but as someone who, in his words, compared to players even in his league, the NBA itself. Oh, man, no, Caitlin is, she's a beast, man. And they love her. So I probably say Caitlin cry. I love Tyrese. But she's another level in terms of just the love that she has. Let that sink in. He wasn't comparing her to WNBA players. He was comparing her to Tyrese Halliburton, his NBA teammate and one of the most exciting point guards in the league. And Pascal still said Caitlin was the one getting the most love. That's not just admiration. That's acknowledgement. That's a reality check for anyone still pretending the WNBA exists in a vacuum. You know someone's impact is real when they're being name-dropped in conversations meant for the NBA elite. Siakam could have picked anyone, but he said Caitlin Clark. That's not a headline. That's a shift. It means Caitlin has broken through the invisible wall between leagues, and guys like Pascal are here for it. He didn't have to say it, but he did, and that tells you everything. You don't always expect a slam-dunk quote from Obi Toppin. He's not known for long monologues or dramatic sound bites, but that's what makes his comment on Caitlin Clark stand out. It wasn't polished, but it was honest. And in today's media world, that hits harder than any scripted PR line. Obi plays with energy, flash, and swag, but his tone changes when he talks about Caitlin Clark. It's not just respect. It's admiration, the kind you give to someone who's doing something bigger than the box score. Yeah, Caitlin's amazing. Super amazing. She's a great player. Having her, be courtside and watching our games, is awesome. We see the excitement that she has on the sides. But just like she's doing that, we do the same. When they're playing, it's so much, it's a joy to watch. What stands out isn't the wording, it's the parody. Obi sees Caitlin and the WNBA as equals, not an afterthought, not lesser. They celebrate their games the same way the NBA guys celebrate theirs. That mutual energy, that's rare and it matters. There's something cool about seeing Caitlin Clark courtside and knowing the NBA players actually care. It's not just, oh, hey, a celebrity showed up. It's a real basketball connection, a real appreciation. What Obi said doesn't need to go viral. It's not a headline grabber, but it reflects something bigger. Caitlin's no longer seen as just a women's basketball player. She's a hooper, period. When NBA players start talking about you like you're part of their world, you've already crossed into it. When someone's on your team, the easy route is to gas them up with a cliche. She's great. I respect her game. That kind of thing. But Tyrese Halliburton didn't go that route. He didn't just hype Caitlin Clark because she shares his city. He didn't compliment her because it was a right PR move. His words came from proximity, from knowing her, and from witnessing the storm she's been walking through every single day without flinching. She's, I think, for me, getting to actually spend time around her, be around her, get to know her personally, she's just an amazing person, an amazing player. She deals with a lot. There's a lot of rhetoric behind her that she really has no control over. And I think that the way she handles that is just amazing. Like, I think when it comes to the game of basketball, like, she's probably top 5 most famous people, that are playing right now, just in general. That includes our league as well. Top 5 most famous, period. That's Tyrese, an NBA All-Star, putting Caitlin Clark in the same conversation as LeBron, Steph, and Jokic. Not out of hype, out of reality. He sees the numbers, the media noise, the fan hysteria. He knows what it's like to be the face of a franchise, and he knows Caitlin's dealing with something even louder as a sophomore. And what gets overlooked in his quote is the empathy. He's not just defending her as a player. He's defending her as a person. Tyrese sees the hate, the pressure, the nonsense she didn't ask for, and he's letting the world know. Caitlin Clark is more than ready. When LeBron James talks, the sports world doesn't just listen. It recalibrates. Every word is dissected. Every pause is analyzed. That's what happens when the face of basketball for the last 2 decades decides to weigh in. So when he spoke up about Caitlin Clark, it wasn't just casual commentary. It was a full-throated endorsement. And it came with a deeper message, one that cut through the noise, through the backlash, and went straight to the core of what this moment in sports is really about. Because everybody is looking for you to say anything, and they're going to splice it and cut it and make it a negative thing. And I think for her, the one thing that I love that she's bringing to her sport, more people want to watch, more people want to tune in. I saw for the first time that they had a charter plane for the first time in their league history. They flew private. That should be celebrated in its own right. This is LeBron defending not just Caitlin Clark, but progress itself. He's seen what she's had to carry. Not just media pressure, but culture shift. He knows what it means when you're the reason a league starts flying private. That's not just history. It's a legacy move. He's been there. The target on your back, the expectations, everything that comes with it. And maybe that's why he sees a bit of himself in Caitlin. She didn't just earn a fan in LeBron. She earned his respect. And that's a whole different kind of praise. There's a certain confidence required to suggest a 3-point contest against one of the most hyped shooters on the planet. There's even more confidence when you're the one asking for it. Enter Trae Young. Known for his deep bombs and fearless attitude, Trae has never been shy. But when it comes to Caitlin Clark, his tone shifts just slightly. Still confident, still playful, but with an unmistakable dose of admiration. This isn't just one elite shooter acknowledging another. It's a peer recognizing greatness in real time. You were hype about Steven and Sabrina. I know that you have spoken about Caitlin Clark. You're a big Caitlin Clark fan. She, of course, is an excellent shooter. Would you ever do, a Caitlin Trae 3-point contest at All-Star? Of course. Of course I would. I've got to talk to her, too, through our college years. We're the only 2 people that ever led college in points and assists. That's a crazy stat. I'd have to definitely practice a lot more than I have for these previous 3-point competitions. Nah, I'd be ready for sure. I'd do it. First of all, that stat. Only 2 players in NCAA history have led the nation in both points and assists in the same season. That's not a fun fact. That's basketball royalty. And the way Trae talks about her, it's not condescending. It's not fake. It's a real nod from one generational talent to another. He's not pretending he'd win that shootout. He's admitting he'd need to get his reps up. That's the ultimate sign of respect. Caitlin isn't just in the conversation. She is the conversation. And Trae Young? He's ready to share the spotlight, or maybe go head-to-head. Paul George doesn't do fluff. When he speaks, it's not for clout. It's to give you perspective. And on the topic of Caitlin Clark, he gave one of the most nuanced takes we've heard from any NBA player. He didn't jump straight to praise. He didn't bash. He zoomed out and gave context. Because while most conversations about Caitlin have centered around highlight clips, viral fouls, or all-time shooting stats, Paul George talked about something else entirely. You got to put it in perspective, right? These girls have been grinding to grow the game of basketball in the WNBA. They've been grinding to grow the sport to the world, the viewerships. They've been grinding for all of this. And then you have this girl that comes along from college and is an instant change. She's handed pretty much being the face of the league. There's going to be girls that are offended by that. That's not a knock on Caitlin. That's a reality check on the culture shift. Paul George himself isn't denying her greatness. In fact, by calling her an instant change, he's confirming it. But he's also acknowledging something we don't talk about enough. The emotional toll it takes on the women who built the foundation. The vets who played in empty gyms, who fought for charter flights, who never had cameras in their faces. They didn't get the perks Caitlin's getting, despite grinding just as hard. And when someone walks in and becomes the face of the league overnight, that stings, even if she earned it. Paul George didn't excuse the resentment, but he humanized it. And in doing so, he showed us just how deep this moment really is. Caitlin isn't just a center of attention. She's the center of a shift that's making everyone feel something. Luka Doncic says what he wants and says what he is thinking. If you've watched him play or talk, you know he's straight to the point, no filter, and especially no extra polish. So when he was asked a simple question about women's basketball, his answer hit with extra weight. There was no hesitation, no fake diplomacy. Luka said what he meant, and in just a few words, he put a stamp on the conversation. Who's your favorite women's basketball player? Caitlin Clark. Really? Yeah. You know, like Paige Buchers, she's okay. I didn't see her playing the women's NBA. So that pause, that pivot, it's not shade, it's standard setting. Luka didn't downplay Paige's talent, but he made it clear. Caitlin Clark is doing it right now at the pro level. That's what matters. She's not just hype from college or a highlight reel from March Madness. She's in the trenches getting hit, dropping dimes, and still showing up every night. It's subtle, but there's respect in that answer. Luka knows what it takes to go from phenom to pro and actually deliver. And the way he said it, that was basketball talk. Real recognizes real. When a generational NBA talent like Luka gives Caitlin that kind of nod, it's not a compliment. It's confirmation. She's passed the test. She's arrived. And in Luka's eyes, she's already that player. He'd watched from afar as the hits kept coming. He saw the league stay silent. And then Steph Curry, one of the most respected voices in basketball, decided it was time to speak. His words didn't just back Caitlin Clark. They sent a message to everyone watching. I'm sick of watching Caitlin getting attacked. If the league doesn't step up and protect her, things are going to get ugly real fast. That wasn't just support. That was a warning shot. When Steph calls it out like that, you know the entire league, and everyone watching has to pay attention. But Steph wasn't done. After calling out the way Caitlin's been treated, he took it a step further. He broke down her game with the kind of detail only he could offer, pointing out her range, her timing, and the fearless style that reminded him of himself. And when he said it, you could hear the respect in his voice. I saw somebody break down the release time, which is pretty much identical to mine. And then her just confidence. Obviously, you can't help but watch when she plays, where she's shooting from the range, the confidence, the flair. Like, she's a performer. It's crazy, though, just because her shot is like that. That's at that level. If you really watch, like, her floor game is as impressive. So it's kind of the total package. Listen to that again. Steph Curry, the greatest shooter in NBA history, just said Caitlin's shot is on par with his. That's not media fluff. That's respect from the mountaintop. But what makes the quote even better? He didn't stop at the shooting. He called her a performer. He pointed out the floor game, the little things casual fans miss, but real hoopers see. The passing, the court vision, and the feel. All of it is already there. Caitlin Clark's game isn't just catching Steph's attention. It's impressing him. That's different. That's especially very rare. Because when the guy who changed basketball forever says, you've got the total package, that's not a shout-out. That's a passing of the torch. There are moments when silence speaks louder than words. And Jason Tatum's silence felt deafening. The Celtics star was asked one of the simplest questions in the world. Who's your favorite WNBA player? A wide-open opportunity to say what so many other stars have already said, to give props, uplift the movement, and recognize the woman who's become the face of the league. But instead of even acknowledging Caitlin Clark, Tatum gave a bare-bones, deadpan answer. Favorite W player? Aya Wilson. That's it. No explanation, not even a shred of context, no love for what Caitlin has been doing, just a brush off. Let's be clear. Wilson is a good player, a multi-time champion, dominant, respected. But this wasn't about disrespecting Aya. It was about ignoring Caitlin Clark, the one and only player who's carried the league on her back, who's changed the financial landscape, who's made WNBA games appointment viewing. And Tatum, one of the biggest names in the NBA, chose to act like she didn't exist. No shout-out, no respect at all, just nothing. It's not just disappointing. It's disgraceful. Because Caitlin isn't asking for fake love. She's earning it. She's taken more hits than any player should, been left off Team USA, had her name dragged in the media, and still shows up, performs, and handles it with grace. And after all that, Jason Tatum couldn't even say her name. How dare he? This wasn't a missed opportunity. It was a statement. Whether intentional or not, that moment sent a message. I see what you're doing, and I don't care. And that right there's a kind of subtle, shrug-it-off disrespect that Caitlin Clark's been up against all season long. Even from the very stars she's inspiring. There's no bigger microphone in basketball than the one Kevin Durant holds. Every tweet, every quote, every podcast appearance. He knows the weight his words carry. So when KD was asked to name his favorite female athlete, the whole sports world waited to hear one name, Caitlin Clark. Instead, he dropped a different one, Angel Reese. No hesitation, no nuance, just a one-word answer. And just like that, it was clear. KD had made his pick, and it wasn't Caitlin. And let's be real, this wasn't a coincidence. This was a choice. Caitlin Clark has been the biggest story in sports all year. She's breaking viewership records, selling out arenas, and bringing global attention to a league that's been overlooked for decades. She's been fouled, mocked, criticized, left off the Olympic team, and still, she's shown nothing but poise. She's doing things no one has ever done. And Kevin Durant didn't just fail to mention her. He went out of his way to highlight her biggest media rival. That's not support. That's a slap in the face. Angel Reese is an okay player. No one's denying that. But when Caitlin's been carrying the WNBA's visibility night after night, how do you look at everything she's done and then deliberately name the one player who's thrown the most shade her way? Angel Reese could never come close to Caitlin Clark. How dare he? This wasn't an honest preference. It was a power play, a subtle I'm not with her moment from a guy who knows exactly how the media works. And in doing so, Durant didn't just ignore Caitlin's impact, he undermined it. Because when a player as influential as KD turns his back on the biggest story in basketball, it doesn't go unnoticed. It reinforces the exact resistance Caitlin's been up against since day one. And if you're not lifting her up when she's carrying this much weight, then yeah, you're part of the problem. This isn't just noise anymore. When NBA stars start speaking in censored, emotional, and on the record, it means something real is happening. Caitlin Clark didn't just spark conversations. She's making the league feel uncomfortable